The Nardo decision told us that we must provide equal opportunities for all. It never told us that we must provide equal funding for all. I don't have a chance to answer this whole question. It's too long. But the argument for local funding of public education is a cruel illusion for citizens interested in quality education for their children. School funding comes mainly from property taxes. So poor counties with lower property taxes would have to tax beyond a barrier which is acceptable to its residents. And wealthier counties, their politicians would not allow us to tax those citizens to fund other counties. I'm sorry to tell you that I believe in the school system is broke. We have a thank you. And that's from the students, right. We have a generation, ladies and gentlemen, we have a generation of children we have lost. And we may not ever recover them, and we better not ever let it happen again. And I think this continually pouring money into public schools is a system that is failed and broken. My time is up. I'm sorry, and I'm going to respect the time, but I have a lot more to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Treasurer Moore?
The biggest mistake I believe we made was in fighting Leandro to begin with, and I think it's so typical of what happens in Raleigh all too often. People have press conferences, they have these great slogans, they say, oh, we're going to have this program, that program. When you peel the covers back, the simple truth of the matter is we're failing our children in many places in North Carolina. You can't have a system that's working right. You can't have a system that's working right where on average 30% of our young people between the 9th grade and the 12th grade drop out, 40% African American. And here's the part that gets me. In our counties that have the highest unemployment rates, we often have the highest dropout rates, 50% in our toughest counties. And that's why when I'm governor, my #1 education priority is going to be to go right at that dropout rate. No new programs, no anything, no pushing things out into the future. Right now, we're going to cut that rate in half. We're going to do it by having real curriculum reform that teaches real job skills. We're going to bring the community together. We're not going to hide this anymore. We're going to get everybody working on this issue together. And we are going to hold those principals and administrators accountable. And I'm not talking about Raleigh accountable. I'm talking real accountable. We're going to fix this problem.
Okay. Justice Orr?
Let's talk about accountability. And I was on the Supreme Court when Leandro was decided, and I wrote the Hope County decision that fleshed out and gave real meaning to Leandro. The state constitution charges the State Board of Education with administering, supervising, and spending the money for public education. And if you think, as the other candidates have said, that we have a failing school system, that the dropout issue, the achievement gap issue has been neglected, then you need to ask what political leaders are accountable for that. And I would submit to you only 2 elected officials under the Constitution sit on the State Board of Education, one to my left, one to my right, and they've both been there for 7 years. It's time for and I recently proposed that we change the system so that the governor is ultimately accountable, not the superintendent of public instruction, not an appointed board of education. I'm willing to make the real changes that will make a real difference in our children's life.
Okay. Again, a reminder, the NAACP would like you all to stick with the issues and not with the other candidates.
I was just quoting the Constitution as to who sits on the board, Gerald.
Cleverly done. Okay, Colonel Nielsen and other candidates. This is the final question in the first round. Colonel Nielsen, North Carolina's 11 historically black colleges and universities have a proud history of serving all students. The NAACP believes they've always been underfunded, under-respected, underappreciated, and underutilized by state leaders. These schools could be a primary source for desperately needed teachers and other professionals in our state. Question, as governor, will you establish an HBCU Development Commission to increase public and private support for HBCUs? And what programs will you implement as governor to ensure the commission's success?
Education is the most important thing we're going to talk about, because it is the lifeblood of our young people. And if we don't help our young people to gain the respect for themselves and learn their self-esteem and bring that forward, we're going to lose. We're losing. So I'm answering the question here in this respect. Yes, we need to fund all our education system. We need to fund our colleges. I will tell you honestly, I'm not for funding one college over another or for black colleges over white colleges. You may not like that, but that's the way I stand. I believe in equality, and that's what I would prefer to always talk about, is equality. So let's do everything in an equal and make sure that all these colleges receive the funding. But please, let's not forget the students. We keep talking about funding colleges, funding schools, funding this. Where do we talk about helping the students? They have to be the primary thing we talk about in this thing, and money, I'm sorry, doesn't fix this every time. We have been so accustomed, and our political leaders in the past have been so accustomed to telling us, money will fix it, money will fix it. And for 30 years, we've dumped money into a system that continues to be broke. This education system with colleges and schools has to get fixed, because if it doesn't, it affects you and I. This does not affect only people who are failing. It affects all of us, because our state must fix this and must have better education for our children, or we're going to lose them, we're going to lose the next generation, and then we're going to lose our state. Do I believe, I'm running out of time again, I could talk forever, you know, but I'm running out of time. I believe we should fund all the colleges and help our students to be sure they all have an equal and fair education.
Thank you, Colonel. Treasurer Moore.
You know, North Carolina has a great and wonderful tradition of having some of the best institutions of higher learning anywhere in the country. And our historically black colleges and universities have been a part of that tradition, whether it's Bennett or Shaw on the private side, or right here in Durham, North Carolina Central, or A&T, or Winston-Salem State. I'm going to leave somebody out and I'm going to get in trouble. We have a great tradition. But one of the things that we have to accept is 40 years ago, particularly on the public side, those systems were not equally funded. And we have to face the reality today, in many instances, those systems are not equally funded. We've made a lot of progress in this area, but here's the most important point of this. At the end of the day, we're preparing North Carolinians for the 21st century, an amazingly changing place where the world is getting smaller and smaller. And any slot that we have out there in a college, whether it's paid for with private dollars or public dollars, we've got to get the best absolute education, the best product we can out of there, and there's work to be done.
Thank you. Justice Orr.
The NAACP is exactly right on this issue. I am the only candidate for governor in either party that has a degree from any state-supported university. And I've also taught over here at North Carolina Central at the law school for approximately 11 years. I know exactly the kind of disparity in resources and the disparity in support that historically black universities and colleges in this state have received. I sit on the Board of Visitors of the North Carolina Central School of Law. I'm committed to its success, even though my degree is from Chapel Hill, and I can promise you as governor that I will be a strong advocate for historic colleges and universities in the black community all across North Carolina. It's the right thing to do.
Okay.